After my grand estate was sold, a process I barely registered through the fog of grief, I found myself living under the roof of my son, Marcus, and his wife, Serena. They swiftly relegated me to the role of an invisible house hand. On the morning of her pivotal business dinner, Serena's voice, sharp as cut glass, pierced the air. "Ensure every surface gleams and prepare a dinner fit for royalty for once," she commanded. "Mr. Finch, my biggest client, arrives tonight. You will serve discreetly, then vanish." But when Mr. Finch's eyes met mine, a flicker of profound recognition stunned him into silence. "Evelyn, is that truly you?" he murmured, a shadow of disbelief crossing his distinguished features. "Evelyn, clear that unsightly spill before Mr. Finch arrives." Serena's hiss, laced with venom, tore through the polite veneer. My hands, trembling uncontrollably, allowed the hot coffee to cascade onto the stark, polished concrete of their ultra-modern kitchen floor. There, amidst the spreading dark liquid, I saw 5 decades of shared life, love and legacy dissolving into an ugly brown blot. At 68, I was the resident, unpaid domestic in what was meant to be my golden years of peace. This present humiliation begged for an explanation. How had Evelyn Vance, a woman of certain standing, come to this? It began 2 years ago, when Arthur, my beloved husband, departed this world with a sudden, cruel finality. I clung to the belief that Marcus, my only son, would be my anchor, my solace. I was devastatingly wrong. "Mother, it's impossible for you to maintain such a sprawling, historic estate by yourself," Marcus had declared, his face a mask of false solicitude that veiled an intent I couldn't quite decipher. "Serena and I have ample room in our new place. It will be absolutely ideal." Yet I recall the telling way he evaded my gaze, fidgeting with his pristine espresso cup, a nervous habit reminiscent of a schoolboy caught in a lie. Ideal. That single word should have been the first tremor of impending disaster. The transfer of my assets, the sale of the Vance estate, it all materialized at a speed that outpaced my capacity to mourn. Marcus orchestrated every detail while I remained submerged in the crushing weight of memorial plans and endless legalities. "Don't trouble yourself with the specifics, Mother. We will look after you." But looking after and taking absolute command, I would soon discover, were chillingly distinct concepts. The initial month offered a fleeting illusion of hospitality. Serena would smile radiantly whenever Marcus was present, inquiring about my day, even once preparing the duck confit I so adored. Yet whenever Marcus departed for his frequent business trips, that fragile veneer cracked. "Evelyn, as you're no longer occupied with your own affairs, perhaps you could assist with the silver service." Soon morphed into, "Evelyn, this kitchen is a disgrace. Attend to it immediately." Wu im mild requests solidified into non-negotiable demands. Gentle suggestions hardened into explicit orders. Marcus, I believe, saw. I caught him observing on occasion, his eyes lingering when Serena would curtly chastise me for arranging the crystal goblets improperly or for failing to fold the linen napkins to her exact specifications. But he would merely offer a nervous cough and discreetly melt away, leaving me to face the storm alone. My designated suite, initially presented as a haven, slowly transformed into a gilded cage. The exquisite marquetry display cabinet Arthur had commissioned for our 20th anniversary, a masterpiece intended to showcase our collection of objets d'art, inexplicably found no suitable place in their minimalist, artfully curated home, and my cherished portraits with Arthur, once prominently displayed, soon vanished from the common areas, deemed incompatible with the aesthetic. I convinced myself it was merely a fleeting phase of disorientation. I attributed their oddities to the ripple effects of my own sorrow. Grief, after all, could make even the most familiar people act strangely. Marcus was consumed by his ascendancy at the financial firm, while Serena was perpetually frazzled by her burgeoning luxury brand consultancy. I, it seemed, was the convenient, silent receptacle for their accumulating frustrations. But this morning, on the eve of Serena's high-stakes client dinner, the stark truth finally pierced through my denial. She harbored no desire for a mother-in-law residing in their home. She merely craved unpaid domestic assistance. "I've secured Mr. Alistair Finch, head of Finch Capital, for dinner," she announced, her voice brimming with self-importance as I prepared their breakfast. This alliance could irrevocably cement my professional legacy, so every single detail must be beyond reproach. I simply nodded, foolishly imagining I might be included, at least peripherally, in such a momentous occasion. You will serve the main course precisely at 7, then you will discreetly retire. This is strictly business, not a family gathering. The teacup, already unsteady, slipped from my grasp then, not from the tremor of age, but from the chilling dismissiveness in her tone, as if I were a nameless caterer rather than the matriarch who had nurtured the very man she married. "Look what you've done, Evelyn!" Serena shrieked, her perfectly sculpted blonde hair whipping around her face. "Do you comprehend the astronomical cost of this polished concrete?" I sank to my knees, frantically blotting the dark liquid with paper towels while she hovered above me, meticulously critiquing my ineffective cleaning technique. This was my wretched reality now, approaching 70, humbled to my hands and knees, suffering the indignity of a scolding from someone young enough to be my daughter. "I expect this entire residence to be impeccable before Mr. Finch's arrival," she continued. Her voice sharpened. "And for heaven's sake, put on something presentable. Appearances are everything tonight, Evelyn." Something presentable. My mind reeled. Was my modest navy suit, my Sunday best, somehow inadequate for her esteemed guest? As I crouched, scrubbing furiously, a faint spark ignited within me. Perhaps it was the sunbeam illuminating the coffee's dark tendrils, sprawling like an undeniable truth across their pristine concrete. Or perhaps it was Arthur's voice, echoing from cherished memory. "Evelyn, never diminish your own worth for another's ego." I sensed, with a growing dread, that some blemishes proved impossible to erase, and some awakenings irrevocably altered the landscape of one's life. The afternoon dissolved into a relentless cycle of scouring, buffing, and orchestrating Serena's high-stakes client dinner. Every surface demanded a mirror finish, every cushion precisely fluffed. I glided through the opulent rooms, a specter in their pristine abode, materializing only for the next demeaning chore. "Have you pressed the linen serviettes?" Serena's sharp query sliced through the quiet, her back to me as she fussed with an extravagant floral arrangement in the dining room, blooms that likely exceeded my weekly food allowance. "Yes, and I've laid the table with the heirloom porcelain," I responded, struggling to mask the profound weariness in my tone. "My porcelain now, Evelyn. Every single item in this dwelling is Marcus's and mine. You'd do well to internalize that fact." The declaration pierced me, a brutal, undeniable truth. Legally, I possess nothing. When I'd liquidated my own ancestral home to contribute to their down payment, Marcus had pledged I would always have a sanctuary with them. How naive I had been, trusting mere promises over the cold, hard certainty of legal agreements. Marcus materialized in the archway, assessing the dining room's perfection. "Looks absolutely brilliant, Mother," he offered, that familiar, brittle cheerfulness I'd come to anticipate in his voice. "You've truly outdone yourself," Serena interjected, barely concealing her exasperation. "Your mother has been toiling all day, Marcus. I trust she retains enough stamina to serve impeccably tonight." A muscle in Marcus's jaw twitched, almost imperceptibly. "Perhaps I could assist with—" "Absolutely not," Serena swiftly interjected. "You have that critical conference call with Tokyo at 6. Business, darling, always takes precedence." She cast a pointed glance my way. Some of us, after all, comprehend the importance of priorities. I observed my son grapple with an internal conflict, perhaps a flicker of guilt, or the nascent stirring of awareness regarding the grim transformation his supposed home had undergone for me. But then his phone vibrated and the fleeting moment evaporated. "I should prepare for that call," he mumbled, steadfastly avoiding my gaze. "Naturally, dearest. Your mother is perfectly capable of managing everything," Serena purred, her voice dripping with saccharine insincerity. "She's remarkably efficient when she applies herself." By 5 o'clock, I was utterly spent. My lower back throbbed from countless hours of relentless cleaning, my hands chapped and raw from meticulously scrubbing grout with an old toothbrush, a testament to Serena's declaration that the guest powder room was not quite flawless. "Go and change into something suitable," she dictated, her gaze fixed on her phone, fingers flying across the screen with frantic urgency. And bear in mind, Evelyn, you are here to serve dinner, not to partake in it. I absolutely forbid any uncomfortable chatter about your ailments or Arthur's antiquated military anecdotes. The sheer flippancy with which she discarded Arthur's memory struck me like a physical assault. My husband, the bedrock of our family, the man who had tirelessly worked 2 jobs to see Marcus through university, had served with profound honor in Vietnam. His recollections were not the meandering musings of an elder. They were vibrant chapters of history, imbued with profound lessons of courage and ultimate sacrifice. Retreating to my small, temporary sanctuary, I slipped into my navy blue gown, the very one I had donned for Marcus and Serena's wedding 7 years prior. It still clung to my frame, a stark contrast to how everything else in my existence had altered beyond comprehension. I caught my reflection in the dim mirror and barely recognized the emaciated figure staring back. When had I become so frail? When had my shoulders begun to hunch, as if perpetually braced for impact, or perhaps trying to vanish entirely? When had the fire in my eyes dwindled to a mere ember? 2 agonizing years of mourning, followed by 18 relentless months of calculated diminishment, had warped me from Arthur's vibrant, confident companion into this shadow of a woman. "Evelyn!" Serena's imperious voice shrilled up the staircase. "Get down here immediately. He'll be here any second, and I need you to relieve him of his coat and escort him to the drawing room. And for goodness sake, manage a smile. You look utterly funereal." A chilling clarity descended upon me. I was attending a funeral. The solemn interment of my dignity, my self-worth, and my very identity within the life of my own son. The sharp rap at the front door. The doorbell chimed, a precise, jarring note. Serena smoothed the exquisite silk of her tailored gown one final time, her eyes flicking to me with a silent, steely command. Professional service, then disappear. I opened the heavy oak door, my practiced smile fixed in place, braced to greet yet another of Serena's important clients who would undoubtedly see right through me. But when I registered the man standing on their immaculate doorstep, the smile withered on my lips. Silver hair, still thick and distinguished despite his 62 years, met deep brown eyes that had haunted my dreams for 4 decades. The same strong jawline now etched with the gravitas of time rather than youthful arrogance. Alistair Finch, the man who had irrevocably altered the trajectory of my life 39 years ago. He looked at me, and I watched, in agonizing slow motion, as recognition dawned in his eyes. "Evelyn," he whispered, his expensive leather briefcase slipping from suddenly nerveless fingers to thud softly on the polished concrete. "Is that truly you?" In that single suspended moment, 39 years of lived history, of carefully constructed walls collapsed into nothing. His face went stark white, then flushed a mottled, angry red. Emotions I couldn't begin to decipher flickered across his features like fragmented old film clips. "Good evening, Mr. Finch." Serena's voice, a bright, oblivious cut through the frozen tableau as she materialized beside me, radiating professional charm. "Welcome to our home. I see you've already met my mother-in-law." Alistair's mouth opened and closed, soundlessly, like a fish gasping for air. His eyes never left mine, searching for something. Confirmation, denial, perhaps an impossible escape. "Yes," he managed, his voice a dry rasp. We've met." I found my own voice somewhere amidst the wreckage of my composure. "Please come in, Mr. Finch," I said, the formal words feeling like shards of glass in my throat. "Serena is looking forward to discussing business with you." I stepped aside, allowing him to enter. He moved past me carefully, warily, as if I might explode if he got too close. "Wonderful," Serena beamed, completely oblivious to the palpable undercurrent of tension crackling between her esteemed guest and her live-in domestic. "Evelyn, take Mr. Finch's coat. Alistair, can I offer you a drink? I have that excellent scotch you mentioned." Alistair shrugged off his expensive overcoat without glancing my way. But when I reached for it, our fingers brushed. He recoiled instantly, as if I'd burned him. "Scotch would be perfect," he said, finally tearing his gaze away from me to focus, albeit weakly, on Serena. I hung his coat in the front closet, my hands trembling so violently I nearly dropped it twice. In the mirror by the door, I caught a glimpse of his reflection. He was watching me, his expression unreadable, a ghost in the polished glass. 39 years ago, Alistair Finch had been a junior associate at a fiercely prestigious law firm, destined for greatness and strategically married to the senior partner's daughter. I, Evelyn Vance, had been a 29-year-old paralegal, desperate to support my 6-year-old son, Marcus, after my husband Arthur suffered a devastating construction accident that left him temporarily disabled. Alistair was impossibly charming, undeniably sophisticated, everything my structured, predictable life had lacked. When he offered to help with Marcus's mounting medical bills, I was beyond grateful. When he offered more than money, I was foolishly, catastrophically flattered. The affair lasted 4 months, long enough for me to fall completely, hopelessly in love, long enough for me to believe his whispered promises about leaving his wife. Long enough for me to make the biggest, most unforgivable mistake of my life. When his wife discovered us, Alistair didn't hesitate. He threw me under the metaphorical bus with a ruthlessness that made my head spin, claiming I'd seduced him, that I'd threatened to fabricate sexual harassment allegations unless he helped me financially. His powerful father-in-law believed every word. The firm fired me without severance, and worse, they ensured I couldn't secure another legal job in the entire city. Arthur, my beloved Arthur, never learned the real reason I'd abruptly switched careers from law to nursing. He'd accepted my story about wanting to help people heal, never knowing I was the one who desperately needed healing. "Evelyn!" Serena's sharp voice brought me back to the agonizing present, cutting through the haze of memory. "Stop dawdling and serve the appetizers." I carried the heavy silver tray of expensive canapes into the living room, where Serena and Alistair now sat on opposite ends of the immaculate cream leather sofa. She was already in full sales mode, gesturing enthusiastically as she described her meticulously crafted marketing strategies. The demographics are perfectly aligned for your demographic, she was elaborating. Discerning young professionals, affluent, seeking genuine experiences, and bespoke quality. Authenticity. The word hung in the air, a cruel, mocking echo in my ears as I presented the canapes to the man who had, with such callous disregard, stripped me of my own truth decades ago. Alistair accepted a bite-sized morsel, his gaze averted, but I noted the almost imperceptible tremor in his hand. Good. He should be rattled. "Your mother-in-law," he began, his tone a careful probe. "She's been with you for some time?" "Roughly 18 months, Serena replied, a dismissive flick of her wrist accompanying the words. "She required lodging after her estate was disposed of. Family obligation, you understand. Disposed of." A sterile euphemism for the maelstrom that followed Arthur's passing. The crushing medical debts, the unforeseen legal wrangles, the predatory clauses of a reverse mortgage I'd been too grief-stricken to comprehend, all consuming the legacy Arthur and I had painstakingly built. "Family obligation," Alistair mused slowly, his eyes once more locking with mine. "Indeed, the intricacies of kinship can be quite burdensome." His scrutinizing gaze felt like a physical weight, pressing down on me. Was he reliving the gut-wrenching scene in his former father-in-law's office, silently witnessing my professional annihilation under false pretenses? Or was he coldly assessing how my unexpected presence might destabilize his meticulously constructed life now? "Dinner will be ready in precisely 15 minutes, I announced, my voice a deliberate shield as I placed the empty tray down. "Splendid timing," Serena chirped, offering a tight, performative smile. "Evelyn is an exceptional cook. Such a help around the house." Help? As if I were a hired hand, a benevolent gesture rather than the blood relation whose life they'd so readily dismantled. I retreated into the sanctuary of the kitchen, but their voices, amplified by the serving hatch, followed me. "She seems quite familiar," Alistair ventured. "Have we perhaps crossed paths before?" "Unlikely," Serena chuckled, the sound brittle. "Evelyn has led an exceedingly sheltered existence. I imagine this is the most high society event she's ever witnessed." Sheltered existence. If only she knew the tempestuous currents my life had navigated and the brewing storm that was now gathering on her own horizon. The succulent prime rib, glistening and perfectly roasted, rested under its foil tent on the gleaming quartz counter. I struggled to quell the tremor in my hands enough to begin carving. Through the serving hatch, Serena's effervescent chatter about market penetration and brand positioning reached me, but my focus remained fixated on Alistair's deeper resonance. His voice now possessed an assured timbre, a polished cadence utterly unlike the nervous, ambitious young lawyer who'd once whispered ardent pledges into my ear almost 4 decades past. Success had certainly bestowed upon him a formidable gravitas, but had it, I wondered with a bitter pang, also gifted him a conscience? "Evelyn, we're ready for dinner." Serena's impatient summons echoed from the dining room. My hands moved with automatic precision, arranging the exquisitely sliced beef alongside the roasted seasonal vegetables and crisp Yorkshire puddings on the antique platter. My mind, however, was a whirlwind. What did Alistair truly want? Why the elaborate charade of feigned unfamiliarity? Was he safeguarding his formidable reputation, or was he orchestrating something far more sinister? In the dining room, I served them with the ghost-like efficiency Serena now expected. Alistair's eyes followed my every subtle motion, his fork suspended mid-air over his plate, as if he'd forgotten the fundamental mechanics of eating. "This presentation is truly remarkable," he finally murmured, yet his gaze was locked on me, not the culinary artistry before him. "Evelyn is full of hidden talents," Serena interjected, slicing into her beef with delicate precision. "You'd never guess she actually worked in legal offices before she transitioned to nursing." Alistair's fork clattered, a jarring note against the fine porcelain. "Legal offices? Oh yes, I recall. Many years ago, before her career shift. You were a paralegal, if memory serves, Evelyn." "Yes," I replied, my voice deliberately soft, carefully measured. "I was a paralegal." "Which firm?" Alistair's voice was meticulously neutral, yet beneath it I detected a wire-taut tension. This was treacherous ground. To utter "Hartwell, Kingston, and Associates" would be to unleash a torrent of shared, agonizing history. To prevaricate would be to admit my fear. "It was quite a long time ago," I offered, opting for diplomacy. "I ultimately found nursing to be far more intrinsically fulfilling." "How truly admirable," Alistair purred, a predatory glint in his eyes. "Helping people heal, rather than engaging in contentious legal battles." The words struck me with the force of a physical blow. He was not merely reminding me of what he had stolen, my livelihood, my career, but of the profound damage to my core beliefs, my faith in justice, my trust in humanity, my conviction that integrity and diligent effort held any true value. "Indeed," I countered, my voice steady, meeting his gaze directly for the first time since his arrival. "Some battles, after all, are simply not worth my peace." A flicker of dawning comprehension crossed his features. He knew I recognized him, and more significantly, he knew I was choosing silence. "Evelyn, we're quite capable of managing the rest," Serena stated, her voice edged with impatience. "You can clear the appetizer dishes and begin on the washing up." I collected the empty plates with the practiced grace of a seasoned domestic. As my hand stretched across the table for Alistair's untouched bread plate, he subtly caught my wrist. "Pardon me," Alistair addressed Serena, his voice a low request. "Would it be possible to use your facilities?" "Certainly. Top of the stairs, second door on the right." As I made my way towards the kitchen, Alistair shadowed my steps. In the secluded corridor, just beyond Serena's direct line of sight, he seized my arm. "We must speak," he murmured, his grip firm. "There's nothing to discuss," I retorted, wrenching my arm free. "That particular exchange concluded 39 years ago, didn't it? Your stance was unequivocally clear then." "Please, Evelyn, you don't grasp the full picture." "Oh, I grasp it perfectly," I countered, my voice a low, burning ember. "You sacrificed me to protect your own skin. The narrative is quite straightforward." "There are layers to this you're unaware of." A bitter laugh escaped me. "Unaware of what, precisely?" "You had a wife. I was expendable. Your ambitions outweighed my very existence. The equation was starkly simple." "My wife was pregnant," he confessed softly, 3 months along when she uncovered our affair. His words struck me with the force of a physical impact. Through decades of gnawing anger and profound pain, this crucial detail had eluded me. She vowed to leave, to take the child. Her father would have utterly demolished my career. But beyond that, she threatened self-harm if I dared admit our involvement was reciprocal, so I became a villain. I was 31, consumed by terror. His voice broke. I made an unforgivable error. Indeed you did, and I bore the full weight of the consequences. From the dining room, Serena's voice pierced the quiet. Alistair, is everything all right? Perfectly fine, he called back, his gaze never leaving mine. Evelyn, please, could we speak after this evening? Somewhere private? My name is Evelyn now, I stated, my tone glacial. The woman you knew died 39 years ago in your former father-in-law's office. And no, there's nothing to discuss. You are here for business with my daughter-in-law. Complete your transaction, then depart. But I need to clarify. The powder room is upstairs, I announced, raising my voice slightly for Serena's benefit. Second door on the right. I turned and walked away, leaving him marooned in the hallway with his burgeoning guilt and his hollow justifications. My hands, however, trembled uncontrollably, forcing me to brace myself against the cool kitchen counter. After all these years, Alistair Finch had re-entered my orbit, and a chilling premonition told me this was merely the prelude. The remainder of the meal blurred into a charade of strained normalcy. I presented the delicate lemon tarts, refilled wine glasses, and cleared the preceding courses, all while Serena finalized what she firmly believed was a lucrative business agreement with the very man who had once sought my ruin. Alistair affixed his signature to the preliminary contract with surprisingly steady hands, yet I observed that he had barely sampled his meal. "This calls for champagne," Serena announced triumphantly once the documents were complete. "Evelyn, fetch the Dom Perignon from the chilled cellar." As I poured the costly champagne, Alistair raised his flute. "To new partnerships," he proclaimed, his eyes seeking mine above the crystal rim, "and to second chances, second chances." The enigmatic phrase reverberated in my mind as I meticulously tidied the kitchen, long after they had retired to the study to conclude their discussions. What was his intent? What manner of second chance could possibly bridge 39 years of profound, deliberate silence between us? Marcus materialized in the kitchen doorway, idly loosening his tie. "How was dinner? All well?" I observed my son's face, catching the subtle strain around his eyes, the almost imperceptible glances he cast towards the study where Serena's triumphant laughter now echoed. "Adequate," I replied, carefully choosing my words. "Your wife appears quite satisfied with her new client." "That's good. She's been under a lot of pressure to secure these larger agreements." He paused, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features. "Mother, earlier, when Serena was giving you directions for tonight." My heart gave a sudden, hopeful lurch. Was he at last going to acknowledge the undeniable reality that had become clear to every soul but his own? "I know she can be quite particular about her arrangements," he concluded, his voice trailing off weakly. Particular. What a profoundly gentle word for such calculated cruelty. "Your wife maintains a certain level of expectation," I offered, maintaining my diplomatic front. "She expects nothing less than perfection." Marcus shifted uneasily, tugging at his loosened tie. "Mother, I know things have been demanding lately. Perhaps we could look into a support agency for some of the heavier chores, you know? Just to ease your load." The phrase, "ease your load," hung in the air, a flimsy gauze over 18 months of relentless, unpaid servitude. He was finally noticing. Yet his proposed remedy was a superficial patch, not a remedy for the gaping wound. A support agency. As if a stranger could mend the profound rupture in our family's dynamic. "That would be thoughtful," I replied, the words flat and hollow, knowing with absolute certainty that his weak proposal would evaporate the moment Serena's sharp gaze fell upon him. Marcus always chose the path of least resistance, a deeply ingrained cowardice I had long grown accustomed to. "Evelyn!" Serena's voice, bright and triumphant, sliced through the quiet from the study. "Mr. Finch is departing. See him to the door, please." I dried my hands on the rough dish towel, a familiar ache settling in my lower back, and walked into the grand foyer. Alistair stood by the door, donning his expensive cashmere overcoat, his profile etched against the cool night air. Serena was already halfway up the sweeping staircase, her laughter echoing, high-pitched and slightly slurred from the celebratory champagne, a toast to what she believed was her unmitigated success. "A most engaging evening, Evelyn," Alistair said, his voice carefully neutral as I opened the heavy oak door. "Indeed," I countered, matching his formality. He stepped onto the polished concrete porch, then paused, turning back. "Evelyn," he murmured, his eyes locking onto mine, a desperate plea in their depths. "I wasn't merely attempting to secure a business deal tonight. There are things I truly need to share with you about the aftermath. What I did. What I tried to do." "Aftermath?" I scoffed, the word acrid on my tongue. "After you utterly decimated my career and my good name, Mr. Finch, what possible aftermath could hold any consequence now?" His shoulders slumped. "I tried to help, Evelyn, discreetly. When Marcus had that accident, when his medical needs were overwhelming." My breath hitched. "Stop right there, Alistair." My voice, though a whisper, carried the force of a tidal wave. "Do not for 1 second attempt to claim credit for my son's recovery. My husband and I sacrificed everything to ensure Marcus received the best care possible. You did nothing." But even as the fierce denial left my lips, a chilling tendril of doubt snaked through my resolve. The anonymous benefactor who'd covered Marcus's experimental reconstructive surgery when he was a boy, the one we'd never identified. The insurance claim that had been processed with uncharacteristic swiftness. The timely, unexpected contracts that had salvaged Arthur's struggling construction firm more than once. "Good night, Mr. Finch," I stated, my voice firm despite the internal turmoil, and closed the door, shutting him out. Through the leaded glass window, I watched his sleek silver Mercedes glide silently away, disappearing around the corner. The moment the taillights vanished, I leaned against the heavy oak, my mind a maelstrom. Could it be true? Had Alistair Finch, the man who had so coldly jettisoned me, been a secret, unseen guardian angel for my family all these years? And if so, why? Guilt? A twisted, possessive echo of a past affection? Some strange, lingering sense of obligation? Upstairs, Serena's melodious humming drifted from the master bathroom, a cheerful counterpoint as she removed her elaborate makeup. "What a flawless evening," she chirped when she heard my footsteps. "Finch Capital is precisely the boost my consultancy needs to ascend to the next echelon." "I'm glad it was successful," I managed, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Did you happen to notice how he seemed to be watching you throughout dinner?" Serena laughed, a bright, unconcerned sound. "Oh, that old chestnut? He was probably just trying to gauge where to place me in his corporate hierarchy. These seasoned patriarchs often have archaic notions about women in business, and even more antiquated ones about household staff and their place." If only she knew just how truly antiquated Alistair's notions were. Archaic enough to sacrifice an innocent woman on the altar of his ambition to preserve his precious marriage and nascent career. In the austere confines of my small room, I sank onto the edge of the narrow guest bed, staring at my reflection in the dim dresser mirror. The same eyes Alistair had once gazed into with such intensity, now shadowed with the weight of years and profound disillusionment. The same hands he had held, now chapped and raw from relentless cleaning chemicals and endless labor. I thought of the young woman I had been then, Evelyn Vance, 29 years old, a paralegal, vibrant and utterly naive, convinced a married man's whispered vows held truth. I had worked 60-hour weeks, desperate to fund Marcus's ongoing physical therapy after his childhood accident, desperate enough to cling to any outstretched hand, any promise of aid. Alistair had initially been so kind, bringing me coffee during the long, solitary nights at the office, listening patiently to my anxieties about Marcus's fragile health, even offering legal research assistance that supplemented my meager income. When that manufactured kindness had blossomed into an undeniable attraction, and that attraction had spiraled into a clandestine affair, I had foolishly convinced myself it was true love. For 4 intoxicating months, I had existed in a precarious, self-deceiving fantasy world, believed Alistair would abandon his marriage, forging a shared future. His whispered promises of a future, his tender embrace in the hushed after-hours confines of his office, had all felt profoundly real. That fragile illusion shattered when his vigilant wife engaged a private detective. The ensuing photographic evidence was undeniably incriminating. Alistair's powerful father-in-law summoned me to his formidable office the following morning, laying out the damning proof with the cold precision of a prosecutor presenting a capital case. Now, 4 decades later, he resurfaced, speaking of aftermath and discreet assistance. But what purpose could such revelations possibly serve? The profound scars were etched, the alternative life I'd once envisioned irrevocably lost. At 68, I was financially adrift, subject to the capricious whims of a daughter-in-law who viewed me as little more than a live-in domestic. Alistair Finch was a titan of industry, affluent and universally respected. For some, the concept of a second chance arrived far too late to bear any true significance. The dawn broke, a desolate gray curtain of rain perfectly mirroring the despondency that clung to my spirit. I was already submerged in the kitchen's methodical rituals, meticulously arranging Serena's customary breakfast of imported Greek yogurt, pristine, organic berries, and artisanal granola. She swept in, a force of nature in her bespoke power suit, radiating triumph like a costly fragrance. "I can't stop replaying last night," she declared, pouring coffee from the gleaming machine that undoubtedly exceeded my yearly food allowance. Alistair Finch possesses the power to fundamentally reshape my entire enterprise. I continued my precise arrangement of berries, a futile attempt to distance myself from the unnerving intensity of Alistair's gaze across the dining table. "Did you know his conglomerate manages some of the most influential luxury labels in the entire Northeast?" Serena pressed on, preening at her reflection in the refrigerator's polished chrome facade. "This foundational agreement alone could net us several $100,000 over the coming 2 years." "That's truly impressive," I murmured, the words feeling like a mouthful of dry grit. He explicitly expressed a desire to collaborate directly with me on the overarching campaign strategy. "Can you even fathom?" She paused, her eyes piercing my reflection in the glass behind her own. "You were remarkably subdued throughout dinner. I trust you weren't overwhelmed by the presence of such an influential figure?" Overwhelmed. Oh, if only the truth were so benign. "My focus remained entirely on providing impeccable service," I replied, my voice carefully devoid of emotion. "You had, after all, stressed the paramount importance of this particular evening. Well, you performed competently, I suppose, though next time endeavor to appear a touch more animated. You looked as though you were presiding over a memorial service." She snatched her breakfast bowl and swept towards the foyer. "I'm convening with my design team this morning to inaugurate the preliminary conceptualization phase. Ensure Marcus's study is immaculate today. He's been rather vocal about the pervasive dust on his cherished volumes." Once the sound of her departure faded, I remained rooted in the kitchen, enveloped by the stark silence. The entire dwelling felt subtly altered now, tainted by Alistair's unexpected intrusion and the deluge of memories he'd unleashed. For nearly 4 decades, I had meticulously rebuilt my existence from the rubble of his betrayal. Arthur, my steadfast Arthur, had never truly grasped the catalyst behind my abrupt pivot from a promising legal career to nursing. He had readily accepted my narrative of a desire to heal others. The bitter irony was that nursing had, in fact, healed me. Tending to the vulnerable had, over time, slowly mended the profound wounds Alistair had inflicted, though the indelible scars persisted. I had discovered a renewed sense of purpose in my vocation, a quiet pride in my honed skills, and ultimately, a love with Arthur that was both authentic and blessedly uncomplicated. Now, as I meticulously cleaned Marcus's study, the very air thick with the scent of aged leather and legal tomes, I couldn't escape the ghost of what might have been. I had possessed a keen mind for the law, sharp and instinctively perceptive. Alistair himself had once commended my meticulous research and unwavering attention to detail. The shrill ring of the telephone shattered the quiet as I was dusting Marcus's framed diplomas. An unknown number, a local prefix. "Hello, Evelyn. It's Alistair. Alistair Finch." My grip tightened instinctively on the receiver, knuckles white. "How did you acquire this number?" "Directory assistance," he replied, his voice a low, insistent hum. Listen, Evelyn, I understand your reluctance, but there are critical details you need to be privy to about the immediate aftermath of that day in Hartwell's office. I know precisely what transpired, I interjected, my voice sharp. I bore the full brunt of those consequences. You only comprehend a fragment of the truth, he countered, his tone laced with an almost desperate urgency. There were further actions I undertook subsequently, actions that might alter your perception. Nothing, I interrupted, my voice unwavering, changes the fundamental truth of your actions. Nothing absolves you for allowing them to annihilate my career and reputation to preserve your own. My wife didn't merely threaten to depart, he confessed, the words spilling out quickly. She threatened self-harm. The harrowing stress of the clandestine relationship had already manifested in alarming physical symptoms for her. Her doctor's prognosis was grim. Any further emotional upheaval could tragically result in the loss of their unborn child. So, Alistair, you chose her over me. I chose the nascent life of my child over both our futures, over your burgeoning career and my very reputation. But Evelyn, I never stopped. Never stopped what? Caring. You stood by silently as they branded me a predator and a liar. My career extinguished without a flicker of remorse. I know, he conceded, his voice raw, and it has consumed me for 40 years. That is why I need to tell you everything. I replaced the receiver, but his words hung in the quiet study, an unsettling echo. And for the first time in 4 decades, the neat, contained narrative I had constructed around that pivotal betrayal began to fray. Had I been sacrificed for more than just Alistair's ambition? Had there been a desperate woman and an innocent, unborn child caught in the agonizing balance? The dawning comprehension didn't soothe the deep, abiding wounds, but it twisted them into complexities I was utterly unprepared to navigate. And deep in my guarded heart, a treacherous, undeniable curiosity stirred. What, precisely, had he meant by helping afterward? Outside, the relentless rain persisted, washing the world in a gray pallor, yet my past refused to remain entombed. 3 days after Alistair's call, I made a decision that would have utterly confounded the Evelyn Vance of old. I called him back. We need to meet, I stated without preamble the moment he answered. But not here, and not anywhere Serena might spot us. Thank you, he breathed, a profound relief evident in his tone. There's a small, unassuming coffee house on Elm Street near the old municipal library. The Copper Kettle, I clarified. Can you meet me there at 2? A faint, bitter smile touched my lips at the irony. The Copper Kettle had been my desperate sanctuary during those crushing weeks after my dismissal, where I'd lingered for hours over a single cooling cup, sifting through abysmal want ads, trying to discern how to salvage a shattered life. I know it, I said simply. The Copper Kettle seemed untouched by the relentless passage of 40 years, the same worn red vinyl booths, the comforting aroma of rich coffee and grilled cheese sandwiches. Alistair was already seated when I arrived, looking starkly out of place in his meticulously tailored suit amidst the comfortable, working-class clientele. I slid into the booth opposite him, noting the almost imperceptible tremor in his hands as he lifted his coffee cup. You look, well, he began, his voice quiet, tentative. Older, of course, but strong. Appearances, Mr. Finch, can be profoundly deceptive, I replied, my voice edged with a deliberate chill. 40 years ago, you imparted that lesson to me with unflinching thoroughness. He winced, a flicker of pain crossing his distinguished features. I deserve that. I deserve far worse. Our waitress, a woman roughly my age, with eyes that held a lifetime of quiet observation, approached with a steaming coffee pot. What can I get for you, honey? Just black coffee, please. Alistair waited until she had moved away before speaking again. Evelyn, I need you to understand something about that agonizing day in my former father-in-law's office. Oh, I understand it perfectly, Alistair. You chose your family and your career over me. I chose an unborn child's life over both our futures, he countered, his gaze unwavering, pleading. I studied his face, searching for any telltale sign of falsehood. And you genuinely believe that justifies your actions? No, he said firmly, his voice devoid of equivocation. "Nothing truly justifies it, but it explains it. And there's still more you deserve to know." He reached into his leather briefcase, extracting a slim manila folder. "After you were forced to leave the firm, I couldn't just let it end. I made some discreet inquiries about your circumstances. Not to interfere," he added quickly, misinterpreting my deepening frown. "Just to ascertain you were safe." "How utterly considerate," I said dryly, the sarcasm sharp. "A trifle late for such profound concern, wasn't it, Alistair? Evelyn, I never stopped caring about you. The guilt has been a corrosive force within me for decades." He opened the folder, pulling out a hospital record. "This is from when Marcus needed his specialist surgery for his leg condition. Do you remember the anonymous donation?" I stared at the document, my heart beginning to thunder in my chest. "What about it?" "That was me. $25,000 to bridge what insurance wouldn't cover." The coffee cup slipped from my suddenly numb fingers, splashing a dark ring onto the laminate table. Marcus had been 8 years old then, still contending with severe mobility issues from his childhood accident. The experimental surgery had represented our last, desperate hope, but its cost was impossibly prohibitive. "You," I whispered, the single word choked with disbelief. "I couldn't undo what I had done to you, Evelyn, but I could ensure Marcus received the care he so desperately needed." "How many times?" My voice was barely a breath. He pulled out additional documents. "Your nursing school tuition, a few unexpected construction contracts that came Arthur's way when finances were particularly tight. Not often, perhaps 4 or 5 instances over the years." Decades. As I absorbed the sheer scale of his clandestine interventions, my hands began to tremble uncontrollably. "It wasn't constant surveillance, but targeted assistance during your family's most dire moments." "How did you know exactly when we were in crisis?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I maintained contact with one of the nurses from Marcus's pediatric ward," Alistair explained, his gaze earnest. "She occasionally shared general information about families facing severe hardships. I never explicitly asked her about you, Evelyn, but when your name surfaced, I acted." 39 years. 39 years of silent, anonymous support, attempting to atone, however imperfectly. Why? The single word, heavy with unspoken history, escaped me. His eyes, now filled with a vulnerability I hadn't seen since he was a young man, met mine directly. "Because I loved you, Evelyn. Because what we shared was profoundly real, even if I lacked the courage to defend it. Because you deserved a life far more honorable than the one I left you with." A torrent of emotion threatened to engulf me, and I furiously blinked back the sting of unshed tears. "Do you honestly believe a few financial contributions somehow absolve you of what you did?" I challenged, my voice raw with decades of suppressed pain. "No," he conceded, his shoulders slumping. "But I desperately hope they might, in some small way, mitigate some of the damage. I know I don't deserve to play the hero, Evelyn, not after all these years. You made your choice then, Alistair, and I have lived with the bitter consequences every single day since." He leaned across the small table, his expression urgent, desperate. "My wife passed away 3 years ago, Evelyn. Cancer. Before she left, she asked me to deliver a message to you." The revelation hung in the air, a potent challenge, a final twist in a story I thought I already knew, like an unbidden secret. A final burden I wasn't sure I wanted to shoulder. "What?" I prompted, my reluctance palpable. "She knew about the funds I'd channeled to you, Evelyn. She knew about my enduring feelings for you. She conveyed her profound regret for the pain she caused, but she also wanted you to know she never, not once, regretted protecting her child." He paused, his gaze fixed somewhere beyond me in the distant past, a child who is now 36 years old and who, to this day, has no idea his mother once threatened self-harm over his father's infidelity. A cold knot formed in my stomach. The weight of his confession was immense. "Why are you telling me all of this now?" I finally asked, the question laced with suspicion. "Because, Evelyn, From what I observed last night at Marcus and Serena's home, you appear to be in a truly difficult situation, and because I want to extend an offer to you." "What kind of offer?" Alistair retrieved another document from his briefcase, a crisp, official-looking printout. "I'm contemplating a transition to semi-retirement. My conglomerate, Finch Capital, requires a seasoned professional to oversee a new division of high-net-worth client relations, someone with exceptional intelligence, keen discretion, and the capacity to navigate highly sensitive matters." He slid the detailed job description across the table. It was for a senior client relations manager position with a salary figure so astronomical it made my head spin. "You're offering me a job?" The question escaped me, a sharp, disbelieving laugh, devoid of any real humor. "Executive-level work, Evelyn, your own office, genuine responsibility. Your innate legal acumen, the very background you never truly got to utilize, would be invaluable." I stared at the staggering salary, picturing it transforming my meager existence. Enough to secure my own apartment, perhaps even purchase a modest house. Enough to finally escape Serena's casually cutting remarks and Marcus's willful, agonizing blindness. "This is guilt money," I stated, my voice flat, accusatory. "Yes," he admitted, his gaze unwavering, "but it's also a genuine opportunity. You are intelligent, highly experienced, and despite everything, Evelyn, I trust you implicitly. Why on earth would I ever want to work for you after everything that transpired?" "Because you desperately need your independence back, Evelyn. And I need someone who cannot be bought, who cannot be intimidated, someone who has already witnessed me at my absolute lowest." My mind flashed back to this very morning's casual humiliation. Serena, dissecting my grocery choices, treating me like a mentally deficient child incapable of reading simple labels. "I need time to consider this," I said, pushing myself up from the worn booth. "Of course." Alistair rose in tandem. "But Evelyn, the offer includes a comprehensive benefits package and a substantial signing bonus, enough for you to secure your own independent residence immediately." Freedom. He was not merely offering a job, he was offering me liberation from the suffocating indignity of being unwanted charity. "I'll call you," I stated, turning to leave before he could possibly discern the treacherous depth of my temptation. 2 days later, my decision was made, but it wasn't the one Alistair Finch anticipated. I was meticulously dusting the living room when Marcus arrived home unexpectedly early, his face etched with a profound weariness I hadn't seen in years. He loosened his tie, his movement sluggish, and sank into his favorite armchair, the very one Serena had strictly forbidden me from ever occupying. "Long day?" I asked, my duster gliding silently around him. "The longest," he mumbled, rubbing his temples in an effort to alleviate a burgeoning headache. 3 crucial deals collapsed today. The board is breathing down my neck about the quarterly projections." He trailed off, his gaze drifting towards me as I continued my work, a silent, spectral presence in his opulent home. "And?" I prompted gently, sensing a deeper confession bubbling to the surface. "And I came home to find my own mother cleaning my house like a hired domestic, while my wife is out indiscriminately shopping for furniture we can barely afford." His voice, usually so controlled, cracked with a raw, unexpected emotion. "When did everything get so utterly messed up, Mom?" I stopped my dusting, the silence in the room suddenly thick and heavy. I looked at my son. Truly looked at him. The dark, bruised circles under his eyes. The new etched stress lines around his mouth that hadn't been there a year ago. His shoulders, once so broad and confident, now seemed to bow under the immense weight of obligations he'd never anticipated. "Why did it take you so long, Marcus?" I asked, my voice thin with a pain that felt too deep for tears. He sat on the edge of the ottoman, his posture mirroring the crushing weight on his shoulders. "Too long, Mother. Far too long." I told myself it was just you settling in, a woman's way of navigating a new household. But that was a lie. A coward's lie to avoid confronting Serena, to avoid confronting myself. His gaze, usually so guarded, met mine, raw with remorse. Arthur would be disgusted with the man I've become, letting his wife, my mother, be treated like this. The word staff hung unspoken, heavy in the air between us. Arthur understood true compromise, Marcus, I replied, a sharp edge to my tone, not the kind that requires sacrificing your mother's dignity for domestic peace. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. His newfound candor emboldened me. Marcus, I was offered a position today. His eyes, weary moments ago, snapped open. A job? Where, Mother? Finch Capital, I stated, watching his reaction. Alistair Finch extended an offer for a senior role in client relations. Mr. Finch? But how do you even know him beyond dinner? His confusion was genuine. I took a deep, fortifying breath. Because, Marcus, 39 years ago I worked for his law firm, and yes, we knew each other intimately. The words hung in the air, a silent bomb. We had an affair. His face blanched. I was 29, desperate to fund your catastrophic medical bills after your accident, working 60-hour weeks. He offered help, and I was foolish enough to believe his promises of a shared future. When it ended, catastrophically, I was blacklisted from legal work. Arthur never knew the real reason I switched from law to nursing. Marcus struggled to assimilate the revelation, his expressions shifting from disbelief to a raw, wounded understanding. You had an affair with a married man? The question was a bewildered whisper. Yes, I was 29, Marcus. Your father was temporarily disabled, and your physical therapy bills were crushing us. Alistair Finch was kind, then charming, then he became everything I thought I needed. I'm not proud of the choices I made, but I am no longer ashamed of the woman I was. Desperate, human, and flawed. I met his stunned gaze, unblinking. His wife found out, Marcus, I continued, the words now flowing. I was fired, blacklisted across the city, left to pick up the pieces alone. Arthur never knew the full truth. Marcus slumped back against the ottoman. And now, he wants to hire you? Out of guilt? Guilt, perhaps a twisted sense of atonement, I conceded. The offer is substantial, Marcus, but it comes with a host of complications I'm not sure I'm ready to face. Before I could elaborate, Serena's voice, sharp and imperious, sliced through the quiet from the foyer. Marcus, whose ostentatious Mercedes is parked in our driveway? We exchanged a glance, then moved to the window. Alistair Finch, impeccable even while navigating our manicured flagstones, was making his way towards the front door. That, I murmured, would be the complication. Marcus surged to his feet. You didn't invite him, did you? No, I told him I needed time to consider. The doorbell chimed, a persistent, demanding tone. I'll handle it, I said, but Marcus was already beside me as I reached for the heavy brass knob. When I swung the door open, Alistair stood there, a formidable figure holding a generous bouquet of pristine white lilies, his expression one of unwavering, almost desperate resolve. Evelyn, my apologies for appearing unannounced, but I couldn't simply wait for your decision. His gaze then shifted, taking in Marcus, standing protectively behind me. Mr. Vance, I trust you'll forgive the intrusion. What in heaven's name is happening here? Serena's voice shrieked as she materialized from the garage entrance, burdened by several designer shopping bags. Her eyes, narrowed to slits, darted between Alistair, the lilies, and me. Alistair, what are you doing here? I've come to discuss a professional opportunity with your mother-in-law, Alistair replied, his tone clipped, unyielding. A job? Serena's voice rose to a disbelieving screech. What kind of job could Evelyn possibly be qualified for? Perhaps polishing silver or organizing files. Her condescending smirk was the final spark. 39 years of silent fury, fueled by 2 years of deliberate degradation, finally ignited. The kind of job, Serena, I said, my voice cutting through her contempt like a honed blade, that requires sharp intelligence, extensive legal expertise, and a level of professional competence you wouldn't begin to comprehend. Qualities you have consistently and erroneously presumed I lack. Serena's jaw dropped, her perfect facade crumbling in an instant. She stared, wide-eyed, utterly unprepared for this unexpected rebellion from her docile domestic. Evelyn Vance is one of the most capable individuals I've ever known, Alistair stated, his voice resonating with an authority that brooked no argument. I am offering her a senior executive position at Finch Capital. This is utterly preposterous, Serena spluttered, her face reddening. She's a retired nurse. She has no business acumen, no relevant experience. Actually, Serena, Marcus interjected, his voice surprisingly firm, stepping slightly in front of me. My mother possesses extensive legal experience, something I've just been made aware of myself. I turned, my gaze locking with Marcus's, a surge of profound, unexpected emotion washing over me. He was standing up for me. Legal experience? Serena's voice was a high-pitched wail of disbelief. Evelyn was a paralegal 40 years ago. That hardly qualifies her for an executive role in a major financial firm. 39 years ago, to be precise, I corrected, my voice steady, my gaze unwavering as I met hers. And yes, Serena, it qualifies me. A great deal more than you fathom. Alistair stepped forward, his posture radiating unshakable resolve. Serena, your mother-in-law is exceptionally qualified for the role I'm extending to her, significantly more qualified than many individuals holding exorbitant MBA degrees with no true grasp of real-world enterprise. The audacious declaration hung in the air, a verbal gauntlet defiantly thrown, Serena's flawless complexion instantly mottled with angry crimson. Marcus, are you truly going to permit them to address me in such an insulting manner, in our own residence? Marcus, caught between the two formidable presences, shifted his gaze from his wife to me, then to Alistair. What precisely are you proposing for my mother? Senior Client Relations Manager, Alistair stated, his voice devoid of equivocation. An exceptional remuneration package, comprehensive benefits, and the inherent respect she intrinsically merits. And your connection to her, Mr. Vance, beyond this evening's dinner appointment? Alistair and I exchanged a loaded glance. The carefully guarded truth, after so many decades, was undeniably on the brink of exposure. We share a rather intricate history, Alistair offered, his tone calibrated for diplomacy. However, that complex past in no way diminishes her perfect suitability for this position. I could almost physically witness the precise moment Serena pieced together the fragments of information. Her eyes widened, not with understanding, but with a burgeoning, malevolent glee. "Oh, my heavens," she gasped, the words laced with venomous triumph. "You two had an affair, didn't you?" The silence that followed Serena's outright accusation was utterly deafening, thick with unspoken truths. Marcus's face cycled through a rapid succession of emotions. Initial shock, then a dawning comprehension, followed by an expression that resembled, startlingly, a flicker of admiration. "Yes," I affirmed simply, my voice unwavering. 39 years ago, Alistair and I did have an affair. It concluded disastrously, and I have since spent decades painstakingly reconstructing my life after the profound consequences. "I knew it!" Serena crowed, her voice shrill with vindication. "I sensed an odd undercurrent last night. The way you constantly observed each other, the palpable tension during dinner." She spun towards Marcus, a triumphant glint in her eyes. "Your mother is engaging in an illicit liaison with my client." "Had," I calmly corrected, my voice a quiet steel. "Past tense, Serena. And he is offering me a professional position, not initiating a personal relationship." "This is utterly unacceptable," Serena railed, growing emboldened by her perceived victory. "A woman of your advanced age associating with married men." "I am a widower," Alistair interjected, his voice cutting and cold. "And Evelyn is a widow. We are both unattached adults." "Adults who systematically destroyed a marriage 39 years ago." Serena's voice escalated into a furious shriek. "How can I possibly trust that you won't repeat such behavior? How can I be certain this job offer isn't merely a pretext to rekindle your affair? Something within me, deep and long dormant, irrevocably fractured. 39 years of carrying the suffocating burden of shame for a youthful mistake. 18 relentless months of being treated as an unpaid domestic. Weeks upon agonizing weeks of Serena's casual, yet cutting cruelty. It all converged and crystallized into a single blinding moment of absolute clarity. You know something, Serena? I uttered, my voice dangerously quiet, each word a precisely aimed dart. You are entirely correct. I did have an affair with a married man when I was 29 years old. I was desperate, profoundly lonely, and I made an egregious error in judgment. But do you know what I never did? Serena's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, like a beached fish gasping for breath. I never subjected my husband's mother to the indignity of being treated as an unpaid domestic servant. I never forced an elderly woman to scrub soiled floors while I meticulously planned extravagant shopping excursions with funds I had not personally earned. I never humiliated someone at a family dinner, nor did I ever make them feel fundamentally unwelcome in their own son's home. "This is my home," Serena sputtered, her face contorted with outrage. "Mine and Marcus's." "Indeed it is," I countered, my voice sharp and unwavering, "and I have been painstakingly reminded of that precise fact every single day for the past 18 months. I pivoted, my gaze locking with Marcus's. "Your wife is correct about one crucial thing. This entire situation is completely inappropriate, but not for the shallow reasons she assumes." Marcus's face had gone utterly pale. "Mom, no, please. Allow me to conclude." I turned back to Serena, my resolve unyielding. "You wish to pass judgment on me for a mistake I committed 39 years ago? Very well. But I have spent those 39 years diligently earning my redemption. I became a dedicated nurse. I devoted my life to helping people heal. I successfully raised a good son. And I loved my husband with unwavering fidelity until the day he departed this world. What, precisely, have you accomplished to earn the profound respect you so vociferously demand from others? How dare you?" Serena shrieked, her voice now a high-pitched, incredulous sound. "How dare I what?" I challenged, my voice rising slightly, infused with years of suppressed anger. "Speak the unvarnished truth? Point out that you have spent the entirety of our relationship making me feel inconsequential and unwanted? That you have systematically transformed my son's home into a place where I am, at best, grudgingly tolerated, and at worst, actively degraded?" Alistair took a protective step forward. "Perhaps we should discuss this matter in private." "No," I declared firmly, shaking my head. "This conversation is monumentally overdue." I looked directly at Marcus, my eyes conveying a lifetime of emotion. "Your wife is correct that I cannot possibly continue to reside here, but not because of some fanciful affair with Alistair. It is because I deserve unequivocally better than being treated as a charity case who should be eternally grateful for mere scraps of kindness." Marcus's admission was barely audible, a fractured whisper of regret. "I never intended for you to feel that way, Mom, but I allowed it to happen." My gaze was unyielding. Allowed it. Every curt command from Serena, every dismissive glance, every slight against my presence in your home. You absorbed it all in silence, Marcus. You chose an uneasy peace over defending your own mother. Serena, ever the interloper, interjected with a brittle laugh. "David cannot possibly be held accountable for your interpretations of trivial interactions, Evelyn." "Trivial?" I retorted, a bitter laugh of my own escaping my lips. "Serena, for 18 months you have systematically, relentlessly eroded my sense of belonging. The only ambiguity left is whether your cruelty is deliberate or merely inherent." Her face hardened. "I have extended nothing but generosity." "And I have tolerated nothing but condescension," I corrected, my voice sharp. "There's a significant distinction." Alistair cleared his throat, his voice a calm counterpoint to the simmering tension. "If I may interject, this situation perfectly illustrates why Evelyn would be an invaluable asset to my organization. She possesses an unwavering integrity. She confronts injustice head-on and navigates complex dynamics with remarkable fortitude." "You will remain out of this, Alistair," Serena snapped, her eyes flashing. "This is an intimate family dispute." "On the contrary," I stated, my voice quiet but firm, "that is precisely the crux of the matter. I am not family here. I am an obligation, a convenient fixture to be managed, rather than a person to be cherished." Marcus let out a choked sound. "Mom, that's not true, is it?" "When, Marcus?" I countered, my voice thin with a pain that felt too deep for tears. Was the last time you inquired about my inner world instead of my domestic efficiency? When did you last include me in a genuine conversation rather than apologizing for my mere presence? A palpable silence descended, stretching taut between us. I'm accepting the offer, I declared, breaking the quiet. Mr. Finch, if the position remains available, I formally accept. It does, Evelyn, Alistair affirmed instantly, a flicker of profound relief in his eyes. And I can ensure suitable accommodations are secured for you immediately. Excellent, I confirmed, casting a final glance around the opulent living room that had never truly felt like sanctuary. I shall vacate the premises by the weekend. Mom, wait, Marcus pleaded, desperation etched on his features. We can rectify this. We can implement new boundaries, initiate fundamental changes. 18 months, Marcus, I stated, my voice unwavering. You had countless opportunities to establish boundaries. You had ample time to instigate change. The only change required now is my departure. But where will you go? What if this opportunity falters? I offered him a faint smile, the first genuine one in what felt like an eternity. Then I will forge a new path. At 68, I am finally prepared to live authentically for myself, rather than awaiting validation from others. Serena's indignant sputtering about disrespect and ingratitude became a distant drone, irrelevant static. For the first time in years, a profound sense of self-possession flooded me. I was Evelyn Vance again, capable, resolute, and no longer willing to accept anything less than I deserved. I will contact you tomorrow regarding commencement dates and logistical arrangements, Alistair, I conveyed. I anticipate your call, Evelyn, he replied, his tone warm. As I ascended the staircase to begin packing, I could still discern Marcus's strained attempts to mollify Serena, her voice rising in a shrill demand for him to choose between his wife and his mother, but their discord faded into background noise as I closed the door to my room. For the first time in 18 months, my decisions were unequivocally my own, and it felt like a resurrection. Moving day dawned with the crisp, invigorating kiss of October sunshine, a potent harbinger of possibility I hadn't felt in countless years. Alistair had facilitated the swift acquisition of a charming, albeit compact, one-bedroom apartment downtown. It boasted gleaming hardwood floors and windows that, refreshingly, actually opened to the city's hum. More crucially, it was mine. Marcus offered his assistance, a clumsy dance of carrying boxes and exchanging stilted pleasantries, carefully sidestepping the gaping chasm that had opened between us. Serena, predictably, had made herself conspicuously scarce, citing an improbable, urgent need to visit her sister in Philadelphia. "This is a lovely space, Mom," Marcus remarked, gently lowering the final box in my new living room. "Wonderful light, and so conveniently located. It suits me perfectly," I replied, already envisioning the arrangement of my sparse possessions. He lingered by the doorway, his hands burrowed deep in his pockets. "Are you truly confident about this role? Working with someone from your past?" "I am certain about the necessity of engaging in meaningful work," I affirmed, "and absolutely confident in my aptitude for this position. The history, Marcus, is precisely that, history. And should old emotions resurface?" I paused, genuinely looking at my son for the first time that day. He had lost a noticeable amount of weight in the past week, and new, stark lines of stress were etched around his eyes. Whatever tribulations had begun to unravel in his marriage since my departure, they were clearly far from over. "It's not just about doing well, Marcus. 39 years ago, I made a profoundly regrettable error with Alistair Finch. But that crucible also forged in me an unyielding core, the absolute certainty that I can endure anything. Betrayal, starting anew from absolute zero. I've weathered it all. The woman who was foolish enough to believe a married man's hollow promises, she's long gone. I understand your concern, but my past is not what you should worry about. Your concern should be focused squarely on your own happiness, and whether that happiness is truly compatible with someone who treated your mother with such casual cruelty." Marcus's composure visibly fractured. "It's been chaotic since you left, Mom," he confessed, his voice heavy. Serena's constantly furious, convinced you've somehow turned me against her." "And have I?" I asked, my gaze steady. "No," he admitted, sinking onto the solitary armchair I'd managed to unbox. "You merely illuminated what was already there." He buried his face in his hands. "I don't know if we can salvage this, Mom. More importantly, I don't know if we should." "That, my son, is a decision only you can make," I replied, carefully choosing my words. "But if you were to ask for my counsel, I would tell you that while marriage demands significant effort, it should never be an unending battle. And it should certainly never force you to choose between your partner and your fundamental integrity." He nodded slowly, processing my words. "She wants me to sever all ties with you. Claims that if I continue to see you, it's proof I'm choosing you over her." "And what do you truly desire, Marcus?" I pressed. His eyes, raw with unspoken emotion, met mine. "I want my mother in my life. And I want a wife who comprehends that the bonds of family don't magically dissolve the moment you say I do." Our weighty conversation was abruptly curtailed by a polite yet insistent knock. Alistair Finch stood on my threshold, a bottle of premium champagne clutched in one hand, his posture radiating a careful balance of deference and a subtle, proprietary confidence. "I hope I'm not intruding," he offered, his gaze sweeping over my still sparse living room. "Just wanted to officially welcome you to the neighborhood." "Alistair," I said, introducing them. "This is my son, Marcus." Marcus, his features still etched with the raw emotions of our discussion, extended his hand. "Mr. Finch." "Marcus," Alistair returned, their handshake firm, a silent assessment passing between the two men. "Thank you," Marcus continued, "for offering my mother this opportunity. She truly needs to be engaged, to feel valued again." Alistair inclined his head slightly. "On the contrary, Marcus, I assure you, your mother will be an invaluable asset to Finch Capital. The gratitude, I believe, will be entirely mine." Marcus retrieved his jacket, the gesture a clear signal of departure. "I should let you get settled, Mom." He leaned in, pressing a tender kiss to my temple. "Call me if you need anything. Anything at all." The unspoken, "I mean it this time," hung in the air. Once Marcus had departed, the silence in my new, still echoing living room became profoundly charged. The unopened champagne bottle on the coffee table felt like a forgotten confession between us. "This is something else," I finally ventured, my voice a little rough. "Indeed," Alistair conceded, his gaze meeting mine with an uncomfortable intensity. "Unquestionably awkward, yet entirely necessary. Evelyn, we are about to embark on a professional collaboration. We must establish parameters." He paused, searching for the right words. "What transpired 39 years ago remains precisely that. 39 years ago. This new chapter is purely professional, nothing more. Is that understood?" "Understood," I affirmed, my own voice firmer than I felt. "And should either of us experience any discomfort with this arrangement, we commit to addressing it immediately and transparently." "Agreed," he replied, his shoulders visibly relaxing. He placed the champagne bottle on my minimalist kitchen counter. "Good. Now shall we discuss your new office?" For the next hour, Alistair, now firmly in CEO mode, expounded on Finch Capital's intricate structure, the high-profile clientele I would manage, and the ambitious projects awaiting my purview. It was genuine, intellectually rigorous work, the kind of profound challenge I hadn't realized I was so starved for, a stark contrast to the relentless drudgery of Serena's demands. As he gathered his things, Alistair added, "One final detail. The role includes a company vehicle, nothing extravagant, purely functional, but essential for client engagements and site visits." I simply stared at him. A car, a tangible symbol of independence, of mobility. "It's a standard business expense, Evelyn," he clarified, seeing my expression. Not charity. It's a benefit afforded to all executives at your level. Don't imbue it with any more significance than that." Yet as I watched his sleek silver Mercedes disappear down the street, I found myself profoundly doubting if either of us possessed the capacity to confine our resurrected connection to the realm of mere professionalism. There was simply too much history between us, decades of unresolved longing, the heavy weight of guilt, and the faint, dangerous promise of forgiveness. And, perhaps most unsettling, the inexplicable comfort of being truly seen and understood by the man who had known me when I was young, foolish, and painfully vulnerable. 3 days later, I walked through the gleaming glass doors of Finch Capital. My new office, located on the 10th floor, offered a breathtaking panoramic vista of the city's sprawling expanse. My nameplate, polished and discreet, proudly announced, Evelyn Vance, Senior Client Relations Manager. And in that moment, for the first time in nearly 4 decades, I felt an almost physical reunion with the woman I was always meant to be. The work was exhilarating, a complex tapestry woven from the legal acumen I'd once meticulously cultivated and the administrative precision I'd honed in the healthcare sector. My mind, long dulled by domestic trivialities, hummed with a renewed, vibrant purpose. Evelyn found herself adept at navigating the intricate web of aged client expectations, swiftly resolving conflicts, and discovering a talent for strategic negotiation that surprised everyone, including herself. "You're truly wasted in just client engagement," remarked Linda, her capable assistant, after Evelyn had masterfully mediated a complex dispute between 2 high-profile accounts. "You should be at the helm of this entire operation." Yet Evelyn felt a profound contentment simply being at the helm of her own life once more. A comfortable apartment, a respectable salary, work that genuinely mattered. It felt like the epitome of luxury after 18 months as unwanted charity. The only shadow on her newfound independence was Marcus. His calls came every few days, each conversation growing increasingly strained as the fissures in his marriage deepened. Serena had issued a series of uncompromising ultimatums, demanding he choose between his wife and his mother, threatening to leave if he didn't sever all ties with Evelyn. "I honestly don't know what to do, Mom," he confessed during one particularly fraught call. "She insists that seeing you makes me impossible to live with." Evelyn had paused, her grip tightening on the receiver. "And what do you think, Marcus?" she had asked, her voice low. "I think seeing you reminded me what self-respect truly looks like." 2 weeks later, Marcus appeared at Evelyn's office, unannounced. His face was deeply lined, etched with fatigue, his eyes red-rimmed from what looked like chronic exhaustion. "I need to tell you something," he stated without preamble, sinking into the visitor's chair. "Serena filed for divorce yesterday." Evelyn slowly set down her coffee cup, her gaze fixed on her son's face. He looked like a man who had finally unburdened himself of an unbearable weight, exhausted but undeniably lighter. "How do you truly feel?" she inquired gently. "Relieved," he admitted, then seemed almost surprised by the honesty of his own word. Guilty about feeling it, of course, but relieved nonetheless. "What happened?" Marcus leaned back, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "She presented me with a final ultimatum. Cut off all contact with you, or she'd file for divorce. When I told her I couldn't do that, she simply said I'd made my choice." He sighed, a weary exhalation. "I'm sorry, Mom." "Don't be," Evelyn countered, her voice firm. "She was right. You had made your choice. You chose to be the kind of man your father raised you to be instead of the kind of man Serena wanted you to become." Through her 10th floor office window, Evelyn watched the ceaseless flow of city traffic, a myriad of lives reconfiguring themselves around truth rather than convenience. "Marcus, you know this isn't your fault, right? Marriage problems that can be solved by cutting your mother out of your life aren't really marriage problems at all." "I know," he conceded, rubbing his temples. "I think I've known for a while. Now she's demanding half of everything, including the house. Claims that you living with us somehow proves I was never truly committed to our marriage." "That's utterly ridiculous," Evelyn scoffed. "Perhaps, but it's also expensive." "Ridiculous." He managed a weak, fleeting smile. "I might need to look for a smaller place myself." "You could always move in with your mother," Evelyn offered dryly, a faint smile touching her lips. "I have a very comfortable couch now." Marcus actually laughed, a genuine, albeit strained sound. "Thanks, Mom, but I think we've both had quite enough of intergenerational living arrangements for a lifetime." A polite, yet insistent knock at her office door interrupted them. Alistair Finch entered, an apologetic expression softening his features. "Pardon the intrusion, Evelyn, but we have a rather urgent situation with the Patterson account that requires your immediate attention." He paused, his gaze registering Marcus. "Oh, hello again, Marcus. This is my son, Marcus Vance." "Alistair," Evelyn clarified. "Marcus was just telling me about his divorce." "I am truly sorry to hear that, Marcus," Alistair said, and he seemed to genuinely mean it. "Divorce is never easy, even when it's ultimately necessary." "You sound like you speak from experience," Marcus observed. "I was divorced once, many years ago," Alistair confirmed. "Different circumstances entirely, but the underlying sense of failure, mixed with a profound relief, can be quite universal." Evelyn looked at Alistair sharply. This was the first she was hearing of a divorce from his first wife. "Mom mentioned your wife had passed away," Marcus added, confused. "My second wife, Eleanor, died 3 years ago," Alistair clarified, his eyes meeting Evelyn's briefly. "My first wife and I divorced about 20 years after the situation with your mother." He paused, a flicker of discomfort crossing his face. "It turns out marriages built purely on guilt and obligation rarely stand the test of time." "Is that what yours was?" Evelyn asked, though she wasn't entirely certain she wanted the answer to that particular question, or any other that might follow. Alistair shifted, clearly uncomfortable with the deeply personal turn the conversation had taken. "The Patterson situation is genuinely urgent, Evelyn." "It's fine, Alistair," Marcus said, standing. Marcus clasped my hand, his grip uncharacteristically tight. "Mom, thank you for everything. For listening. For not judging. For showing me what I refused to see." His eyes, raw with fatigue, sought mine. "You always had your reservations about Serena, didn't you?" "I saw her for who she presented herself to be," I replied, my voice carefully measured. "My concern was always for the woman she truly was, beneath the veneer." He nodded slowly, then turned to leave. "I should get back to work anyway." He leaned in, pressing a tender kiss to my cheek. "Thanks for listening, Mom, and for not saying, 'I told you so' about Serena." As Marcus's footsteps faded, the immediate urgency of the Patterson account pulled me into a whirlwind of legal briefs and intricate negotiations. Alistair, now fully immersed in the problem, was a formidable, yet unexpectedly collaborative partner. We dove into the contract dispute, a complex labyrinth that demanded the kind of sharp legal mind I hadn't actively engaged in decades. Yet the old instincts resurfaced, keen and precise. We moved in sync, anticipating each other's next move, a professional choreography forged in shared intelligence and a surprising, almost comfortable rhythm. As we finally closed the deal, securing a favorable outcome for Finch Capital, a profound satisfaction settled over me. "You were right about this venture, Alistair," I told him, a genuine smile touching my lips. I had forgotten the sheer exhilaration of unraveling such intricate legal knots. "And you, Evelyn," he replied, his gaze warm with genuine admiration, "are remarkably suited for it, even more so than I had dared to hope." High praise from the man who was convinced I might simply be here to complicate his existence, I countered with a wry smile. Alistair chuckled, a completely relaxed sound I hadn't heard from him before. "Perhaps initially, but now it appears you are far too dedicated to proving your own undeniable competence to bother with such petty grievances." He paused, his expression shifting to one of serious intent. "Which leads me to another, rather significant proposition for you, Evelyn." He produced a discreet manila folder from his leather briefcase, placing it on the polished conference table between us. "While this involves a substantial professional shift, I assure you it is rooted purely in business." He detailed his plan for full retirement, outlining the company's need for a successor to take over day-to-day operations. Someone with an unparalleled legal foundation, astute business acumen, and the genuine respect of our esteemed clientele. I stared at the folder without opening it. Are you offering me your position?" "I am offering you the opportunity to helm Finch Capital," Alistair affirmed, his voice earnest. "Full partnership, complete operational authority, and a remuneration package that would truly acknowledge your immense value. Before you dismiss it, consider this. You've not only mastered this current role in mere weeks, but you command the respect of every associate and client you've interacted with. You possess an intuitive grasp of leadership and a human touch I, frankly, never cultivated. I opened the folder, my eyes scanning the staggering figures and the formidable list of responsibilities. It was more money than I had ever imagined earning, and precisely the kind of intellectual challenge I had craved for so long. Why, Alistair? After all this time? His gaze met mine, unwavering. Because 39 years ago, I irrevocably derailed a brilliant legal career. This is my attempt, however imperfect, to offer you not just redemption, but a trajectory far beyond what you might have achieved then. A better one than you ever could have had before. And you? I asked, my voice thin. What becomes of the formidable Alistair Finch? I shall transition to a consulting role, perhaps devote myself to mastering golf badly, or finally learn to simply be, after 4 decades of relentless striving. A flicker of a memory, perhaps of his first marriage's demise, crossed his features. My first marriage, Evelyn, wasn't the only casualty of my ambition. I thought of Serena's casual dismissal of my abilities, the 18 relentless months of being treated like an aging burden, the slow erosion of my self-worth. I thought of Marcus's recent awakening to his mother being more than a retired nurse who cleaned houses. All of it contrasted sharply with this incredible proposition. I need time to process this, Alistair, I said, pushing the folder slightly away. Take every moment you require, Evelyn. But remember this. You have, against all odds, already proven your capacity to forge a magnificent life from fragments. This is merely an invitation to build it into something truly monumental, something extraordinary. That evening, I sat on my small balcony with a glass of wine, watching the sunset paint the city in hues of orange and purple. The sprawling cityscape before me seemed to hum with possibility, a reflection of the profound shift within me. Alistair's offer sat on my kitchen table, a document that could transform my future if I was brave enough to accept it. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Dinner tomorrow, I have news, your place. I smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile that reached my eyes. I typed back, my place, Marcus, 7. I'll prepare something special. For the first time in years, I was genuinely excited about the future, not because a man was offering to change my life, but because I had finally remembered I was capable of changing it myself. At 68, I was just getting started, reclaiming my narrative, one decisive step at a time.